I had a guy that I worked with, a CPA, that for years I'd call him and I'd be like, "Should I be doing something different? Should I be doing something more?" And he'd be like, "I don't know, Stephanie. What did you hear from your friends?" Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Well, nothing. I just want you to tell me." I was always kind of frustrated with that old guy, if I'm being honest, that I was like, "Well, it's not, I don't know. It's not my job. You're supposed to be telling me." And so I think if you've had that experience with your CPA, maybe you're thinking, okay, I don't
Yeah.
know, is there really anything I can do? Is it really worth it, I guess?
I think there definitely is. I mean, I hear that all the time from law firm owners that their CPA has just told them, well, just be happy you make the money you make. There's not much you can do. I think most CPAs are trained to be very conservative in their approach to taxes. They really want to make sure that you're not audited, that nothing's a red flag. There's a saying, anything's deductible until you're audited.
Yeah.
But there are things you can do that are perfectly safe, that are legitimate. If you're doing them properly, you're maintaining proper documentation, especially around things like your home office deduction, your use of vehicles, employing your members of your family, your spouse, your kids. And as financial planners, we like to think, really long term. So we're constantly thinking about how taxes relate to your investments and, Roth conversion strategies and thinking about 20 years from now, how do we make sure that you're optimizing your taxes over a long span of time as well. Now I do have to say, be careful to your audience, because I see that on social media there are so many tax planners. There's a lot of bad tax advice out there on social media. So make sure you're working with someone qualified, because you really do want to be careful. But as long as you're doing things legitimately that are in the tax code, that are written for business owners, um, you know, our tax code is set up to be helpful to business owners. So there's a lot of great things that you should be taking advantage of if you can.
I am kind of curious, are there a couple of key questions that you should be asking the person that you're working with to kind of vet them? Like somebody may say, "Well, I don't know. How do I know if they're qualified?" What would you tell us?
Your designations are good places to start. The CPA, although the CPAs tend to not necessarily be tax planners all the time. Um, have they been through some kind of training, for taxes? We're CFPs, so we can do tax planning. We can't give tax advice, like legal tax advice, but we can definitely strategize around different things you can do. So, make sure that they have some qualifications.
I like that. And I remember the person that I'm working with kind of said, "Listen, bring on the audits," because I mean, he kind of reframed how I thought about it. Not that we're doing things risky, but he was like, "Listen, we don't mind when our clients get audited because, to your point, we have all the documentation right down to this is the exact code or opinion or whatever it is we're relying on. If we're doing our job, like you should not be worried that an audit is going to uncover something wrong it because we've done our job right." And that, as a client, obviously gave me some assurance and was like, "Yeah, okay, well, that's good." Like lawyers, you're always like, does if this contract got tested in court or in litigation, would it stand up? And
Uh-huh.
that's
Uh-huh.
kind of the same attitude. And I think maybe on that point, as we sort of wrap up, get the help might be my advice. Like one of my takeaways from this, I remember once a long time ago, I did file my own taxes, and then we opened another business, and I was like, maybe I should get a CPA. And they did the review, and it's just kind of embarrassing, but they found a mistake that I had made that resulted in me getting a very large check. I didn't know any better, and I from that point on, I've always given the advice, like, guys, just like we say to
Yeah.
lawyers, you don't want to represent yourself, hire a lawyer. It's worth the investment. The same goes with this financial stuff, both on the tax side, but also the investment side. I know it's easy to get out there and think, well, I can just do some research on the internet and figure out what investments I need to make because the information's out there. But having a trusted advisor like you, having someone that can walk you through it and answer questions, it's, to me, so worth it.